radiation. All that needs to be accomplished comes by reason of true radiation. We're all aware of how it was put quite a long time ago. Radiation, response, attraction, union, unified radiation. The starting point is radiation. Something must be brought to focus so that the light can shine in a specific sense. For me, that was brought to focus by Yolanda. There was the radiation. True radiation is very compelling. It engenders response in those who are aware of the radiation. If a person is not aware of the radiation, then there will not be a response to it. Thankfully, I was aware of the radiation. And so there was a response. Others shared in this at the time. Response, attraction. In the period of attraction, there is the tendency to seek to reflect the radiation. The idea being to become like the one who is the point of radiation. Let's reflect that. Let me reflect that. And possibly, in that case, for a while there may be imitation. But the process doesn't stop with attraction. Where there is response to true radiation, there is irresistible attraction. What is the attraction for? So that one may imitate the radiation? That would be phony, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be the real thing. No, the attraction is leading toward what was called union, which in other terms could be described as shared radiation. Shared radiation would be the beginning of genuineness. And awareness comes of what is natural and right insofar as one's own radiation is concerned, in alignment with the radiation which up to that point had been the source of attraction. Certainly one isn't going to be attracted forever. I think perhaps human beings have looked upon this as indicating that there's a long journey, a journey which is consummated on the basis of attraction. You're forever being attracted. You never reach what it is you're being attracted towards. But this is a rather foolish idea. Certainly, human beings have felt that there was a long journey, pilgrim's progress. But all the attraction does is to bring one into position to share the radiation. That needn't be a lengthy You all know of this particular cycle. Necessarily, there had to be radiation first. Without that, there'd be nothing to respond to. Because there was radiation, there has been response. As I've indicated from my own standpoint, I discovered rather dramatically the necessity for shared radiation. It couldn't be evaded. I couldn't remain in an attractive mode or in the mode of attraction. Now, the same thing is true for anyone if this creative cycle is to come to its proper fulfillment. Each one may respond and experience the attraction, and included in that, as I have indicated, is the usual human endeavor to imitate what it is supposed is the radiation through somebody else. It is seen as radiation through somebody else. The only way one could associate with that, according to the usual human view, is to imitate it. And so there is likely to be a period of imitation. This is a period when one is seeking to reflect somebody else's radiation. In the comment period this morning, we were noting this as symbolized by the moon. The moon reflects sunlight. But in no sense is it the sun. It is a pale reflection, isn't it? A silvery moon, very romantic. But without much substance, really. Certainly no warmth seems to be reflected from the moon. Just rather pale light. And I think this has been characteristic of many who have participated in the emissary ministry. Just a pale, rather uninteresting light, without all that much warmth. So it isn't a matter of imitation, reflection. It is a matter of coming to the point of union. The only way that can happen is to accept the responsibility of sharing the radiation. Then the nature and quality of the radiation becomes known, because it isn't something that's merely being reflected from somebody else. It becomes known because it is one's own expression. That is union. And when there is union, there may consequently be unified radiation. We have examined this particular cycle on many occasions in the past, but perhaps we see it with clearer vision now, so that we might be keenly aware of any remaining hang-ups we have with respect to the fulfillment of this creative process. It can't be fulfilled as long as one is a pale reflection. I don't think anyone really wishes to be a pale reflection of something, but rather be the thing itself. And the thing itself is the point of focus which allows for the radiation to be a fact. And the way this comes about is that the radiation begins to be more particularly shared. In my own experience, having assumed the responsibility of providing radiation, it was very necessary for me never to deny it. Human beings find it rather easy, apparently, to deny it. The story of Peter was a portrayal of this. If one is sharing the radiation, one would not be inclined to deny it, because the radiation brings with it an awareness of authority. As I have provided that radiation, I had some awareness of my own authority in consequence. Many, virtually everyone at one point or another, has questioned the radiation and has attempted in one way or another to cause me to deny it. I've been educated by various ones as to how I should handle my responsibilities. Very often, this was brought to point with respect to the unit, either here or on Sunrise Ranch. When was something going to be done about these things that were going on in the unit? And, of course, the individual who posed this question had an idea as to what should be done, and was seeking to persuade me to accept their idea rather than be true to the radiation. Now, we all find ourselves in positions of this nature. I have rather steadfastly, I trust, refused to deny the radiation. Come what may, I was going to be true to that. And if that meant not being true to someone's idea or opinion, so be it. And so certain ones became somewhat disgusted and were consequently repelled. Because there are two aspects to this radiation. One is irresistible attraction, and the other is irresistible repulsion. Which it is of little moment as far as I'm concerned, but it is of considerable moment for those who either accept the attraction or insist upon the repulsion. However, that's their business. I'm more interested in the business of those who accept the attraction, so that there may be provided what is most helpful to assist in sharing the radiation. Only by shared radiation can anyone come to know whether the radiation is valid or not. Those who have questioned the validity of it never could do so from experience. All they did was from a stance of opinion. Because the only way to have the experience is to share the radiation. Then you know what it is. Otherwise, you don't. Otherwise, you have a concept about it, and you may reflect some of what you conceive the radiation to be, but it doesn't cause anything very much to happen on that basis, and so people get tired of doing that and drift away. But when there is a sharing of the radiation, to whatever extent, one becomes aware of the nature of that radiation. And one becomes aware, to the extent of one's sharing, of the validity of it. Yes, it's true. And one knows that for oneself. Of course, there are things that occur from time to time. Rick mentioned this fact, that there may be buttons pressed, as he put it, which if one ceases to share the radiation, may be disastrous in various degrees, because immediately one stops sharing the radiation, the experience of it vanishes. And there may be a memory for a while, getting dimmer and dimmer. One only knows when it's actually happening. Then it isn't merely a theory. If one stops sharing the radiation, what remains is merely a theory, which becomes more untenable and more untenable as time goes on. Our concern, presumably, has been to share the radiation, and to share it come what may. Do you think no buttons have ever been pressed in me? That would be a ridiculous idea, wouldn't it? Do I have some special dispensation, no buttons? buttons are pressed in me just as they are pressed in everybody else. The question is as to whether, when they are pressed, you are going to deny the radiation or not. That's been my responsibility, and it's your responsibility too. These things must be handled. When we begin to find that polarity is firmly established in the creative process, then the buttons don't have so much effect. And they are seen rather as opportunity to deal forthrightly with a particular aspect of human nature that is involved. This relates to what was spoken of as the temptations in the wilderness, of course. Get thee hence. Aligned with the radiation, there is the awareness of authority. And one is not going to be fooled by those things which present themselves attempting to establish their validity. The things of human nature. One doesn't dither. Well, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm uncertain, perhaps. Anyone can accept that sort of wimpish attitude, and if they do, they're sunk. But by the same token, if there is alignment with the radiation, there is the authority. And these things are naturally and easily dealt with. It's interesting in the story as it appears in the Bible that insofar as the master was concerned, it was a one-shot deal. He did it. That was that. Human nature was dealt with forthrightly. Most people have the idea that, oh, well, something's going to come up again and again and again, and I'm going to have to deal with it again and again and again. Well, if that is the viewpoint, there's a wimp. It isn't, if you deal with it. If you don't deal with it, of course, it comes up again. Another opportunity is provided, and that's wonderful that it should be. But the authority is there initially to handle these things of human nature that come up in oneself. That's what the temptations in the wilderness are portraying. If one exercises that authority in that field, then you are in position to exercise it in any field. In other words, we're not forever concerned with this matter of dealing with human nature. As though the only reason for our presence on earth is to continually be dealing with these things as they arise. If you have really dealt with them, you have dealt with them. And while things may arise, you see them no longer in a personal sense. They are factors that relate to your field of ministry, your life field, what you are present on earth to do. You will observe human nature all around. The mere fact that you deal with it in yourself doesn't mean that it's gone from the world. It merely means that you are now in position to do what comes next. And what comes next relates to this matter of unified radiation. Where there is the fact of consistent radiation, an awareness of one's own authority because of that, this matter of irresistible attraction goes into effect. And there will be circumstances brought to you in which that authority may be exercised. This is happening now, insofar as our body is concerned. In the past, there's been the idea on the part of many that they wanted to be appointed somewhere, sent out into the world to do some great work, as though there wasn't anything to do at home. We have been discovering, to start with, that this is the great work. Because whatever else needs to be done, when this is done, will come. We won't have to go out looking for it all over the place. It will come to us. It will be drawn. We are aware of this magnetic force. And what rightly should come at any given time will come. There's no necessity at all to seek it out. It seeks us out once the authority is there. And circumstances arise, people come in various ways because there is a sensing of authority, very often quite subconsciously, sometimes consciously. We rejoice in either case because this brings into our field of operations what is necessary in order to establish dominion. Now, there are many things happening, you're aware of some of them at least, within the range of our ministry. I'm sure you're becoming convinced, if you were not before, that we don't need to go out looking for, trouble? I'm not suggesting that we're attracting trouble, either. But what needs to come comes to be dealt with from the standpoint of our authority. That's all. We don't look out over there somewhere and say, oh, there's something over there I think that needs my authority. No. It'll come right next to you when you are in position to handle it. The handling of it is based in the fact that you handle rightly what now comes to you. If you handle that rightly, more will come. Now, of course, one has to be open to let more come. There are those who think, well, I got enough to handle it, it is. I don't want any more. We're here to get a job done. I don't think most of us have had any awareness of the scope of what it is that's required, except in a rather vague theoretical way. But things now come. there was on Sunrise Ranch recently. This agricultural stewardship conference, where people came because there was a facility available to handle their coming. And the facility was available to the extent that all concerned had been handling what was already present. Then something more could come. There is this program with which Barbara Kaufman is associated, relating to the production of moving pictures, both in the Soviet Union and the United States. And something is coming together. Why is it coming together? There are those who have been undertaking to do what was apparently necessary to let it come together. And I'm most thankful for any who have played a part in this. But it is coming together because there is a focus of spirit. There is a focus of radiation. There is attraction. And so, those who are conscious of their authority find themselves in these sort of situations. Not because they produced them in the ordinary human sense, but because they were simply drawn by reason of the fact of the creative process and the focus of spirit that was being provided in the individual sense. We all have responsibility in that regard. And we all will find ourselves in positions where we are responsible, spiritually speaking, for what is happening. We are responsible already for much of which we consciously have no awareness as yet. But all this moves on the basis of the creative process, and circumstances are brought to us. We can look around and find many things that are happening in this way in these days. They're very small things in actual fact, but nevertheless they provide settings for the presence of a focus of spiritual authority. We're here to let dominion be established. There are those who recognize consciously that something seems to happen when there are emissaries in the picture. Let's not become conceited about this, because it has nothing to do with the human state of affairs, but everything to do with spiritual radiation. What was it? Never underestimate the power of spiritual expression. Did you ever hear about that? I think you underestimated it. Now we find that it works in at present rather seemingly insignificant ways, although this Soviet-US thing is not so insignificant in the human sense. But those concerned have no awareness whatsoever of what's going on. there is something sensed by some. And there has been a willingness to align with that sensing. Of course, the usual human motivations are present, and there is the expectation of getting something out of it somehow. And we see these motivations, but they mean nothing, because what is happening by reason of the creative radiation that is present. It is present by reason of this body. It finds focus in this individual and that individual in different ways at different times. But it wouldn't find focus in anyone unless it was present in the body. And so there is much that is being attracted, irresistible attraction. And we better be on hand to handle it as it comes. I thank God that there have been those present and available who've been able to handle, in recent days at least, much that has put in an appearance. I could describe some other things that are happening, but I don't think it's necessary. It's not a matter of looking out there, anyway. It's a matter of assuming the responsibility for oneself, so that one provides that irresistible attraction to bring what should come for one's own handling. When something begins to put in an appearance in that way, and heretofore being rather a little person, you think of what is coming as big. What attitude are you going to take? Oh, I couldn't possibly handle this. I'm weak and wimpish. Or will you assume the authority which you carry? Certainly. If it comes to me, I can handle it. It wouldn't come to me if I couldn't. The way I handle it will be discovered as it goes along. It may involve, probably will involve others. Almost invariably it does. But not in the sense of pushing off responsibility onto somebody else. It may be fitting to speak to somebody else with respect to the looming responsibility in order to discover how best it could be handled. But not because one is ducking out. Not because one is saying, "Not me, Lord." Now, these things are happening. I suppose you could say whether we like it or not. So, as usual, we better like it. I rejoice that there is evidence of a focus of radiation, true radiation on Earth. Do you imagine that if you are in a point of radiant focus, you are going to see the radiation? You are going to sort of bask in a cloud of glory? This is the radiation, my radiation going out. No, you don't see it. You don't see your own radiation because you are the radiation. It's what you are. What you do see is the effect of that radiation. The effect, the attractive effect, which brings to you what needs to come to you. initially, as I say, those factors of human nature that need to be dealt with most forthrightly. Then, having dealt with those, there's clear space for what needs to come next. And what comes next relates to what is coming home, what is going to provide a setting for your radiation, for the authority of your radiation. That may require doing this and that, saying this or that. Maybe that you just keep quiet. That you are keenly aware of the fact that you are present in relationship to what comes as the point of authority, the point of consistent, continuing radiation. The radiation gets the job done, and we share that radiation with each other. We don't claim any of it for ourselves. Well, this is my radiation, don't you infringe on it. How do you know? You can't see the radiation anyway. It isn't a personal matter. It is a matter of letting love radiate. Oh, we've talked about that. We've said those words frequently. But who knew what they meant? Well, let's keep finding out. We find out by reason of the evidence of what it is that's brought to us. And there is much on the way. Let us be assured of that. Not because we can then become scared of it, but because then we're prepared to welcome it and to handle it as it needs to be handled. And we all have sufficient understanding to do this. Each individual has. But never deny the fact of the radiation which you share. And never try to manipulate what the radiation is taking care of. So we let it work. And what a delight that is. As I say, there is irresistible attraction for what is coming home. What needs to come into the picture. May not look all that hot for the moment, but let it come. We'll find out why it came. Don't judge by the appearance. And there is irresistible repulsion. That's wonderful, too. Takes the things that don't belong clear out of the picture. Let's let it work the way it works. So that we may share in this beautiful, creative process, because we stand as radiant points of light, blended together. There's just one light. We think of the sun as being one thing, and it is. I wonder how much it occurred to anyone that there is a vast variety in the sun. It is one thing because of that vast variety. That is what makes possible the outpouring radiation. Let it be so for us. In our field of responsibility, where the authority needs to be exercised to bring everything into balanced orbit with respect to this radiant point for which we carry responsibility. And so it shall be. As there are those who are found faithful and true in this, so shall it be.
It's with rejoicing in my heart that I can stand in this spot representing many others I know to give voice in agreement that the time for resistance, the time for staying in the attractive phase is long over. It is wonderful just to let the genuineness of myself, acknowledge the genuineness in each other, come forth and be with you in complete agreement to the focus you provide.
We really need to be, locked in to the creative process.